right, everyone. Welcome back to Adobe Live. I'm so excited to be back for another episode of this awesome illustration stream with my new friend, Shanee. How are you, Shanee?
I'm good. How's everyone doing? I'm so excited to be here again and to finish everything up.
Yeah, it's gonna be so much fun. I'm really pumped to kind of jump back into yesterday's project and kind of see what is on the agenda for today. However, first, before we jump into a little recap and what Shanae has planned for this morning, I would love to call attention to a couple of things. Number one, we do have a challenge going on. So if you guys head over to behance.net/live, just in case you folks are watching over on YouTube, and check out the creative challenge tab above the chat, you will be able to see all of the details and things for how to jump into the challenge, how to get involved, and how to post your work, because Shanae and I are going to be taking a look at those towards the end of the stream. And then also, we are not the only designers who are going to be on talking and hanging out and creating work today. So I'm going to pop over to the schedule just to show you guys that we are here at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. With the illustration segment, but we're actually having the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge right after us with Andrew Hockrattle, followed by Rachel Smith, who's going to be here doing some design systems for UI UX design. Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge is coming up after that with Andrea Epi, and then we are going to round the day out with the sketch party from Kathleen Martin. So I'm super excited about all of the awesome stuff that we have planned, so definitely stick around for the other designers. And then thank you, Wade, for sending through the link to the challenge page and also the Discord. Really appreciate that, so you guys can jump in and get that. And again, if you're over on YouTube and you're wondering where are all these links, where are all these tabs Val is talking about, you definitely want to head over to behance.net/live, because that is where we will be reading the chat. It's where the party's happening, and where all the resources are being posted. So I've kind of jumped over to our work screen here. Shanae, why don't you maybe tell everyone a little bit about you, just in case they weren't here yesterday, and then maybe take us through a quick recap of what you worked on yesterday.
For sure. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Shanee Benjamin. I'm an artist and illustrator from Brooklyn. I've been designing for about 7 years now, and I'm super passionate about working with women owned, female owned, and women empowerment brands. So today and yesterday, we on a branding and illustration project called Sunnies. It's just like a brand for Gen Z millennials, really cool, fun, and kitschy. Just a new, fresh way on a take of sunglasses. So yesterday we did the logo and the branding and color palette. We came up with some really, really cool gradients. I started off with the mood board, the look and feel of the brand, and then today I'm going to focus on the illustrations of the brand. That's really going to tie all of this together. And then when we're done, we're just going to mock everything up in sunglasses case and a few other assets so we can really see Sunnies as a whole.
I'm super excited about it. We had so much fun yesterday just talking about creating the mood board, which, your mood board, I guess, technique. It was really unique because it looks like part of the branding, which was really cool. We did some really cool stuff with color and kind of creating the logo and all that stuff. And so I can't wait to see how all these new assets and concepts kind of tie in. So why don't we just jump into it? And folks in chat, if you all have any questions, feel free to post them. I'm going to be relaying any questions or comments you have for Shanae to her while she's working, and we can just kind of go for it. I'm pumped.
It's awesome. So right here, this is where we left off. One thing that I did, that I added, is I added a different gradient shade. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do something that's very blue and green and kind of stick away from the pinks because I felt the pink was a little bit overwhelming. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually really love how it kind of balances all the colors in the rainbow. So here we have, there are some sketches that I made last night and then we popped them into Illustrator. And then I'm gonna see how many, if I can get one of these done today, and then we're gonna pop that into the branding. So basically, my process for when I illustrate is I usually, sometimes I stay on the white or I'll just stay. on the gray. It's just easier for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to zoom in a lot. That's just how I work. I keep my opacity down to maybe like that, and then I'll lock it so I don't have any messy stuff. When it comes to colors, I just prefer to, as I did yesterday, pull my color palette out just so I can just pull from it super easily. And then when it comes to like highlights and shadows and stuff, I don't really worry about picking colors for that. That's just more or less blending modes for me.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
gotcha.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, I just find that I like the textural element that it kind of creates with it.
I also like to use blending modes when it comes to adding color to my own illustrations. It's kind of like my go-to. I think every once in a while I start like in full color, but for the most part, I think my favorite part of illustration is getting to the point where I can experiment with those blending modes. It's pretty satisfying.
All right, let's try it here. And then for this, we also have the brand color. So we have our CC libraries up. I love CC libraries. It's so organized and it keeps all of my assets in one place. So I
Yay!
really color drop and pull anything that I need. And I love it because the vector, it stays within size. I just love it. It's my absolute favorite. So when I get into illustrating, I like to personally use the pencil tool. I think that just kind of gives it a little bit more personality. And then I also, again, play around with the fidelity. For this, I'm gonna go a little bit more smooth, and then I'll go in with the smooth tool afterwards. So
And so for this, are you just kind of building out like the larger basic shapes of the illustration before you get into the detail? Is that the goal here?
yes.
Awesome. And then, oh, I see Vasuda is back. Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us again. We have our wonderful friend and moderator, Wade Acuff, who's here with us today. Sean is back. Andreas is here. Sam, what's up? Sam Sirstari is in the chat today. It's good to see you. I'm also looking forward to today. Sam, we had so much fun yesterday, and I've been really excited. Let's see who else we got in here. We got JD is in the chat. Lena, Steve Festus Casaboom, one of our regular friends here on Adobe Live. And yeah, we got Colby is in the chat. Thank you all so much for joining us. Again, if you folks are over on YouTube and you're wondering where are all these people I am greeting, we are over on behance.net/live. So please head over there because we want to say hi to you. We want to see you, and we wanna talk to you. We want to know what you think about our projects that we're working on today. Now, I would like to know, like, is this your go-to method for illustrating every time you do an illustration? Like, is this the honed kind of process that you've got down, or do you have other methods for doing this sort of thing as well?
I have other methods, but it also depends on what program I'm using.
Gotcha. So like, there are different methods with like Photoshop versus Illustrator.
Well, I don't illustrate really in Illustrator. Sorry, in Photoshop. I only add like texture and stuff.
Oh,
I
gotcha.
love
Okay.
the elements in Photoshop. Like I prefer to keep everything in Illustrator if I use Illustrator, and then everything else is in is in what you call it, Photoshop. Sorry, my brain is like blinking right now.
No, that's totally fine. Sometimes I get like that when I'm working and explaining at the same time. I have to like take a break, formulate my thoughts before I jump back into it. Sonda says they love the process. I do as well. Katie Hess in the chat saying hi all. It's good to see you, Katie. Welcome in. Sama, hello. It's good to see you. And Sonda says back again. Can't wait to see the final piece. I'm in the same boat. Also, welcome in, Chris. And Megan Kissel is here saying hello, ladies. Can't wait to see what you get up to today. Me as well. And I'm really loving just being able to watch, because you said that you zoom in, watching how you zoom in and get like these really precise shapes and everything in. And it's especially like really great for me to watch because I'm less familiar with the tools in Illustrator so I can really like watch up close and personal like how I might try and do this same thing myself as well. Um, are you when you switch from tool to tool, do you use like the hotkeys and stuff for it, or are you more comfortable just kind of picking from the toolbar?
It depends on what the hotkeys are, because I know sometimes hotkeys have changed,
Mm-hmm.
but to the hotkeys that I'm like used to, they work. So I'm just it's like second nature for me. Honestly speaking, I kind of forget what the actual tool looks like on the bar because I'm so used to just saying Command X or Command whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Command X, E, whatever it may be.
I'm in the same boat. Sometimes when people are like, what's that hotkey?" I have to like reach down and do it and see where my hands land before I can actually tell people what it is because I'm so used to just the automatic motion of reaching over and hitting that hotkey rather than just knowing what it is specifically off the top of my head.
Definitely in the same exact way.
Chris Olson is saying he's having a lot of fun and very excited to be here again for part two. I'm so glad.
Thank you. I'm so excited that everyone's enjoying this. This has been like super fun for me.
And have you ever like live streamed before, or was this like a serious first for you?
This is a first for me. I'm a very, very quiet person. Like I don't even like putting pictures of myself on my Instagram.
Really? Oh, that's so crazy. I think that's kind of one of the things that evolves about a person as they start to build their like social media presence for freelance, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm the same where I really don't post a lot of pictures of me, but when I do, it's usually because somebody was like, "Hey, you don't post enough pictures of yourself." And I'm like, "Do you want that?" Like, because I could draw and post some
Like,
drawings. But people will be like, post pictures. And I'm like, okay. And I have to like post them even though I feel awkward about them and like just, okay, here's a picture of my face.
mhm.
Um, and so that was weird, like kind of being like that and then going into streaming super regularly. So I get that feeling. Um,
It's very for me. Yeah, I'm just not a public person. I'm just like, I love my artwork. I love that you love my artwork, but I like to be anonymous. Okay.
I wonder if there's anyone in chat that does live streaming. Is there anyone in the chat that's done any like art streaming live on the web at all? And what is your experience been? Is it something that you like to do frequently, or is it something that maybe doesn't come very naturally to you? I'm always curious to see
Yeah.
how many streamers we have and what other people's experience has kind of been like that because it's kind of it's new and strange for a lot of people, but it's also starting to become like the way of the future, right? Because all of like the social media accounts are starting to allow you to broadcast and do all this stuff. So um, it's been kind of an interesting turning point in my opinion.
I think there's a lot of value in streaming, and there's some people who are just they have a natural personality for it, and I love listening to them talk
Mm-hmm.
and to learn so much from it. It's really cool. It's a really cool new medium.
Yeah, it's really nice, especially like with resources like Adobe Live. Like if you're having a issue or you don't know how to solve a particular problem in the middle of a project, it's always nice to be able to like jump on to something like Adobe Live. Like here you can check out the schedule, figure out when someone's going to be online that is using the same program as you, and then you can just jump into chat and like ask a question and find an answer there.
Yep.
Whereas like the difference between that for me versus like 10 years ago jumping online and praying I find like a Linda tutorial or something that shows me how to
Oh,
fix,
Linda.
yeah, like and it was hard because the for me I always preferred like the internet personality like personalized little 5-minute tutorial that you might find on YouTube, but not everybody was doing that. So sometimes I would find like this 30-minute video that said it also covered that. So I would have to like wait through it or skip through it and like find hopefully um, a solution. And now I can just jump in and be like, hey, Paul Tranny, how do I do this in Photoshop? And then he'll be like, oh, well, Val, here, X, Y, and Z. There you go. Boom. And I'm like, so much easier and so much more, like, I have way more time. I get to the bottom of my problems way faster than before. And also, it becomes like a really fun place to interact and keep me motivated to do work. So for me, like live streaming has become like a like serious bread and butter for my creative process, I think.
That's really awesome. I would look into that more often. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I would. I suggest like I mean, like you said, streaming isn't for everyone because sometimes like certain personalities may be better for it than others. But if people are interested in it, I say like maybe take the plunge and check it out because there also is a lot. There's a lot of people out there that prefer less of a spunky, talkative personality and more of like a laid back, kind of chill stream with soft
Yeah,
music,
I think there's a market for all types of people. Not just one type, but all types.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, you never know like what you have to offer until you test it out. And with it becoming such like a prominent thing, I think now, especially now with, because the world's crazy right now, like everybody has a lot more free time now, maybe than they originally anticipated at the beginning of 2020. So I think it's also kind of an interesting time just to test something out and see if it works. Um, and so it may be cool for some folks just to jump in and try it, or if not trying to stream, maybe get involved in more broadcasts, because I don't know if some of you folks in chat know this, but we actually have a lot of people that are streaming just to their own Behance profiles, and you can see them up on the top bar when you go to the Behance main page. And I found tons of cool new broadcasters that I just love to listen to in the background while I work when Adobe Live is offline. That's where I get my Adobe live stream art. Um, Time for the evening if Adobe Live's not online, and that's been really cool too.
That's really cool. I need to check that out.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So I really love all of these almost more abstract shapes that you're also doing here, because I can see like the main lines that you're putting in, but I also like that they overlap a lot, especially like where the cheek and the lips are concerned. Like they seem to overlap and kind of create
Yeah,
this kind of wireframe almost that's very unique.
that's exactly what I do. It's also so I can see when I do my layers, so I
Mm-hmm.
can know exactly which goes on top of which.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Because you're gonna layer some solid colors, I assume, and see how that goes. Yeah.
And also because of the shape. Sometimes, I mean, I could, if I really, like, if I had enough time, I could go in with, the Pathfinder tool and break some of the shapes up. But sometimes, for time's sake, I find it just easier if you just, make a big shape and then put the other shape on top of it to hide the excess that you don't need.
Gotcha. Is there a search function for seeing who is broadcasting when, or do you just have to log in and see who's broadcasting at that moment? Alexandra, I'm not exactly sure. I've been, whenever I go watch them on Behance, I've kind of tuned in whenever to see who is online at what times, and then I go to their profile and I follow them, and then I take a look at their schedule, because a lot of people have like a basic schedule for when you can expect them on, and then I've just been showing up when people I really like are broadcasting. Um, but I'll have to go through and look through it. I've just been, because sometimes once you find a way that is accurate and good for you to like do something, you don't really use the other functions, and that's kind of how I've been with the Behance streaming. Is I found people I love to see, and then that's just who I go watch. But kind of tuning in whenever you have the time is cool too, because a lot of streamers typically have a particular time frame in which they stream because that's when they have time for their time zone in their country and everything. So typically, if you tune in around the same time, the same sort of people are like the same group of people is typically streaming at that time. That's what I have found. So I have like my go tos, you know. But it's been a blast. It's definitely been a lot of fun just being able to watch everybody else's process and kind of communicate with designers that I love in more of like a candid, like spontaneous way, um, rather than like watching a pre-recorded video of them, which is always fun. Also, Carol is saying it's a great time to do some binge learning. I love binge learning. Sometimes I love watching like time lapses and tutorials more than like watching Netflix, which is really saying something because I'm one of those Netflix people that's like I don't always watch Netflix, but when I do, I watch 4 seasons in 2 days. That's usually how I function. So it's been live streaming has been a pretty good time. Also, welcome in, Lindsay. It's good to see you. If I haven't greeted you already, it's always a pleasure. And this is coming together so nicely, Shanee. I'm loving all these shapes. I'm getting into the hair. I love it.
This was a bit tricky for me when I was drawing it because for me, I love drawing like braids, but
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, I don't know why, like when my brain just like doesn't the crosses. And so
Mm.
I really, 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 really like took some time to like really look at this and make sure that I kind of got like the texture of braids.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job because when I saw it when you first pulled it up, you even have like the spaces between where the braids start on the scalp, which a lot of people don't add when they're illustrating like black hairstyles. But I used to have like box braids and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and that was like totally a thing is like you have space in between and depending on the style of like I also had dreadlocks for a lot of years too, and having dreadlocks and looking at images or illustrations of dreadlocks is very different because there's a lot of different kinds of care and different looks and styles you can go for. So I think that you have done a pretty accurate job. It looks very realistic and accurate to me.
Thank you so much. I
You're
really
welcome. Lindsay says, based solely on Instagram, I love Shanae's overall aesthetic. It is so colorful and fun. I
oh,
agree. And I
thank you.
can I'm going to jump over real quick because I've got your Instagram up. So if anyone would like to check out Shanae's Instagram, it's Shanee Benjamin on Instagram, like this. And you can actually scroll through and check out um, a lot of her illustrations. She's got so many beautiful things, and Lindsay is totally right. There is so much like culture and color and fun shapes and great energy happening over on this Instagram. So definitely check it out. You will not be disappointed. When I got here, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm loving this. So check it out. Again, that is Instagram.com/Shanee Benjamin, just first and last name. And you guys can also, looks like, check out Society 6 shop up at the top, which is awesome. So check that out. I'm going to flip back over to your work again. There we go. And I think you said yesterday that Instagram was probably the best place to reach you and to see like your latest work.
yeah, just send me a DM. I respond. So I'm always loving to talk to people.
Nice. And Wade has posted the link in the chat. Thank you so much, Wade. Uh, oh my gosh, are these done in Illustrator? I love this from Terry. Yeah, I think a lot of your stuff is done in Illustrator and then maybe touched up with textures in Photoshop. You said.
Some of my stuff, some of my older stuff is. For my newer stuff, I use a couple of other programs, but I do love to finish up everything in Photoshop for like the final touches, the textures, the overlays, and everything.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so Terry, if you're loving it, definitely give her a follow for a steady stream of epic illustrations.
All right, let's see. Object unlock. All right, let's see how much detail we have in this puppy.
Ooh,
I like to move mine a little bit. All right, cool.
nice.
Great. How are we on time?
We still have about an hour before we look at the challenge entries, so we're good.
Hop onto this one, making sure I can do both because all I need to do now is just literally fill in the colors.
I'm so excited. I love the glasses that this girl is wearing, by the way.
You know, I love funky glasses, so that's what I was like
Mhm.
going for when I was doing my glasses research.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And I think it definitely goes with the kind of brand identity really well to have like some wacky kind of shapes and stuff because all of the branding that you've done thus far is like really funky and like eye-catching, and so it makes sense to do a lot of like the advertisements and the branding illustrations with some glasses that like turn heads, right?
Exactly.
So this is really cool. Carol says, recently I tried an illustration of an iguana with the pen tool, but switched to the pencil tool for all the squiggly lines. So much easier, and it's still a path you can edit. Yeah, I love that it's a little more, how you said squiggly. I think that's a good way to put it. It's a lot more squiggly than the pen tool.
I like it. It also depends on the smoothness too. Like if you really mess with the fidelity, you can really get a lot of smooth lines.
Hmm,
Sometimes with the pen tool, I like the pen tool, but I feel like it lacks personality.
gotcha.
Personally,
Yeah, and that's the thing is if I'm doing something that's really precise, the pen tool comes to my rescue every time, and I can like if I zoom in and I really work hard kind of manipulating the Bezier curves and everything, I can get like a spot on perfect thing. But if I'm doing something that's more organic, I always end up making sure that I actually like as a, like a painter, I actually usually end up working with the brush tool,
Mhm.
which is
I
just
love.
my preference, but something it would be similar I guess to the pencil tool where you can really freehand and get a lot of more organic shapes and curves and things like that. So
I definitely, you're right on that. Actually, I'm gonna utilize the brush tool because that's a good one.
yay.
That's right.
Alexandra says, I need to start using the pencil tool more. It seems a little more free flowing than the pen tool. Yeah, for me personally, that's about how it feels too.
And you see what I'm doing right now? Like, see how my lines aren't smooth? So all I
Mm-hmm.
did popped onto the smooth tool. And with here, you can kind of like play with the fidelity as well to get the smoothness of the points.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just kind of drop it over and you see how it's starting to smooth the lines out, but it still keeps that personality, which I like. That's why when
So
I
do,
go between both.
do you just like drag that over the top almost like you're painting with a brush and it just smooths it out automatically?
Just drag it right over the points that you want to smooth, and then the algorithm just smooths it out based on the space.
Gotcha, gotcha. Because see, I this is actually a tool that I have not used in Illustrator at all. So this is like totally new information for me. So that sounds awesome. And the next time I do some vector work in Illustrator, I will probably use that tool because that's like kind of what like as somebody that is more used to smoothing and blurring with like brush tools in Photoshop, that really like clicks in my head as something that I could get used to using.
Definitely agree with that. And you'll also see sometimes with my shapes, I'm super exaggerated as I just like literally drew the line in the middle of her face.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because everything is going to be going behind. So that's why I say sometimes with this, like I don't really pay attention and make sure that everything is like cut exactly where it needs to be.
Oh, okay.
All about playing with my layers too and making sure everything is on point. All right, so this.
I like that you do that, and I think maybe if I tried, I would be a little confused with all the overlap, but I see what you mean where you kind of have in your head like organized which portion of which of all of the different shapes are going to be showing and which part is going to be behind, so you just kind of close it real quick and it doesn't matter too much if things do overlap because you can kind of see a clear path in your head of
Yeah.
what's going to be hidden, what won't. Gotcha.
And also, my process again is like I'm very not like chaotic, but I process is just like very kind of just whatever works for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to utilize the tools in whatever way that I possibly can.
Yep.
There's many ways you can utilize this tool. Like there's not like one specific correct way to illustrate using these programs, and that's what I love about it.
I love being that way about it too because I kind of said this a little bit yesterday and I've said it before. Like, I feel like a lot, at the beginning of my creative journey, I won't say wasted a lot of time, but I spent too much time worrying about doing things the right way, and kind of like trying to adopt another person's process for how they use certain tools because I thought, well, I'm not a professional yet and they are, so I should do it the way they do it because that's how professionals do things when in reality, yeah, there are some pretty good tips and tricks that would make things easier and I should probably use. But the bottom line is, as the designer for my own jobs and my own projects, I should also pay attention to just what feels good to me and what brings me joy when I'm creating. And then those then become the right professional way for me personally. Which is important. It's like a valid part of the professional process is also making sure that you are loving what you're doing and it doesn't have to be exactly as other professionals create their work, you know?
Yep, it's all a learning process.
And it looks like Carol is saying there's also path simplify if you have too many points. That's a good point. So if you don't want to use the smoothing brush because you have a really really complicated shape, you could do the simplify action and simplify the whole thing in one go. And then Vasuda is saying we can use the curvature tool also, though I usually use the pen tool. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can do a project, and I love seeing everyone in chat kind of share all of the um, different methods of things because it gives a lot of people, especially folks who are here today who are maybe at the beginning of their journey, kind of gives them an idea of like, yeah, you're seeing how we're working today and you watch Shanee do this, but if you find a part of her process that you maybe wouldn't naturally gravitate to, usually there's someone in chat saying, or you could do it this way and you can try that. It's just a really cool place to be able to open up dialogue and kind of perfect
Definitely.
your own process.
I 100% agree. I love hearing other people's ways how they create the same exact thing. I love it.
Mm-hmm. I frequently find that I learn a lot too whenever I broadcast and create work because usually when I'll draw something or I'll paint something or I'll change a color in some manner and someone in chat will be like, why didn't you do X, Y, and Z instead? And sometimes they say that and I'm like, I didn't even know you could do that. And they're like, yeah, that's what I do. And then I'll test it out or I'll put it on a back burner and try it out in a later project. And I'm always like blown away by just how many ways there are to do things. And sometimes people share stuff with me here on Adobe Live that end up becoming like my serious new go to way of working on my projects. I always find something new. Like you, for instance, with the smooth tool. I never use the smooth tool. That's not like in my repertoire of like go to things, but I will now.
And I definitely understand that. I love learning new things in this way. So let's see how do we do.
Getting these lenses in here. I'm so excited about them.
Yeah, with the gradients that I have, I think I'm gonna actually instead of like I'm gonna put the gradients in as the polarized lenses, which
Ooh.
and fun.
I like. And Basuda is saying, I saw your Instagram page, Shanee. It's awesome. Great work.
Yeah.
And Tara is saying, I love the eyebrows, Shanee, especially. Really? She says, since the onset of the quarantine, hers resemble caterpillars. I think everybody's going through that a little bit because there's
We all going through it.
yeah.
I support you. We all going through it.
I usually would like go sometimes and like have somebody like shape them, and now I've been like this close to my mirror with a pair of tweezers, like, let me help you out, girls, let me try and do this myself.
So I'm like, yep. We live in new times now, so.
Yep, we're working it out. I've been watching beauty videos and figuring this out on my own lately.
Oh, right. There's no other choice.
Yep. Johanna says, so true, screen sharing while drawing has really helped me keep things a lot more loose and fast moving. Worst case, I'll just redraw the thing. That's cool. I'd love to know how many folks in chat maybe don't broadcast, but how many of you guys are like jumping into like a Discord or Zoom calls or Google Hangouts and like sharing your screen and drawing with friends? And if not, is that something that is like appealing to you? Because sometimes I do that. My buddy and I, we don't do it all the time, but if I'm just like bored out of my mind, which I found myself in that situation a lot as of late, I'll just be like, I need to draw, and it's not good enough that I just need to draw by myself. Like, somebody has to be watching me draw. So if you want to watch me draw while I draw, I will watch you draw while you draw, and we will pretend we're hanging out in the same place. This is how it's been. Patty Bronson says, I missed the start of the presentation. Was the sketch scanned in?
Yeah, so I used my sketch on my iPad, and then I pulled in, say, this PSD, exported the Photoshop file, then exported as JPEG, low-res JPEG, 72 DPI, so Illustrator won't lag, and then I just popped it in here.
Nice. Let's see. Anthony wants to know if you worry about layer count when you're working in Illustrator. He wants to know if you worry about how many layers you have in these illustrations.
No, I don't think so.
Just kind of go for it.
Yeah, I've never really thought about that before. I mean, no.
That's awesome. All right then.
About that, yeah.
There you have it.
Draw it. I mean, sometimes with the iPad you're limited on layers, but with here, I mean, I've never run out of layers so far. So
yeah, same in Photoshop. My layers are I'm getting into like really being serious about layer organization, so that if I have to share a file or if I just come back to something after a while, I'm not totally lost, and I can or I can, if I do a broadcast and I want to show people layers, I can flip through them easily instead of like clicking on layer 473 and hoping that's the layer I'm looking for, you know? But it was something for a really long time I didn't think about. I just made a new layer constantly till I had like tons and tons of different tiers in my illustration, and that it didn't bother me.
Definitely understand that. So what I'm doing now is just coloring everything, and as I color, you shall see how it works out.
Nice. I'm so excited for this part. Even just with like the first initial skin tone dropped in, it already has like this super interesting look and like solid vibe going on that I love.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Let's let's see. Is anyone using this from Patty Bronson? Is anyone using Adobe Capture to send drawing to CC Library to use in Illustrator? I have, Patty. So Adobe Capture has this really awesome feature where if you draw something traditionally, you can take a photo of it via Adobe Capture, and it will create a vectorized version of it with like a transparent background that you can then drag into other Adobe apps. And I have done that before where I sketched something and I thought, oh gosh, like I really love this. And you can go in and you can clean it up in Adobe Capture before you send it over. And depending on how clean your drawing is or how much you clean it up after you've taken the photo, you get like a really smooth, nice vector out of it. And it's been actually kind of a lifesaver, Patty, because sometimes I do something that I'm just like, oh, why didn't I do this in Photoshop or in Fresco? And then I have it, and I've thought so many times in the past when I did traditional art, like I wish I could just grab this and just put it into Photoshop without having to try and clean it up. And then now I literally have that magic at my fingertips, and it's really cool. So highly recommend checking out Adobe Capture if you folks have not already, because it's really awesome. And Johanna says her friends and her actually do work together through each other's shared screens, keeps the work fun and ourselves accountable to actually doing it. That's awesome.
That's really good.
Kind of stay motivated with friends and keep your eye on the ball. I imagine that, for me personally, I've been working from home and like using Zoom and everything for so many years that the transition that everyone's going through at the moment has been a completely different experience for me. Where a lot of people, yeah, like, a lot of people have felt like very displaced and kind of uncertain as far as what to do and how to use these programs and how to work from home. For me, it's been more like finally all of my friends are where I am every day, and they're more like I can reach them easier, which is strange. But I imagine that for someone who has not been doing this for like working in this way for very long, that the screen share and creating art with friends in that way probably works wonders to kind of simulate that office space, you know, and kind of help people to stay on track and keep their eye on their projects and keep going. Because that would be, I imagine, would be very strange suddenly not having the community aspect of the workspace all of a sudden, and then we have no idea when that's going to come back. So I like to hear that people are kind of finding new ways to do that. A lot of people using Discord. Um, Biola says, my client wanted screen sharing to make changes as he spoke. I had to decline. Yeah, I can see how that would be awkward, especially if you're not used to designing on the fly or you've never had like the stereotypical like hovering art director kind of leaning over your shoulder pointing to this and that. I have had people ask me also to live stream work that I was doing for them, and sometimes I accepted because I felt like they would respond well to it, but it's not always a good idea to do live work for a client if they don't understand the process, really. Has anyone ever asked you to broadcast for them, like as a client? Has anyone ever asked you to do that, Shanee?
No, and thankfully, no. I no.
Not something you would go for?
No, I just like I mean, I've been working from home for a couple years now, and so my thing is I work from my office home. So I why
Why would I do that?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't understand. That's crazy.
Yeah.
a little crazy.
And there's like, it's kind of interesting. We were talking about like clients and everything yesterday, and discussing the interesting like nuances of like communication through the process, when you're working with clients. And I think that when somebody requests to be able to watch you design live, if you're cool with that, that's cool, because I've done it. But in my experience, like, not every client is actually a good idea to design live for, because I've had certain people where I'm like, okay, I know this guy, or this girl is somebody that I've worked with before. I've been very transparent about my process with them, and so I could stream this because I communicate with them very well. But if you don't really know a client, and you're not really familiar with their methods of communication, sometimes you may find yourself in a situation doing live art for them, like I did a couple of times. And that is, I was working with a client who really did not understand that things don't look perfect right off the bat. Like, you don't always sit down to create an illustration and go from point A to point B in like a straight shot there from beginning to end. And so he was asking me for certain things to be added to an illustration. And when I started sketching them, he was like, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look right. And I was like, let me do the sketch. Let me start refining it, because that's how I do it when nobody's watching. And so it's just like the communication and like the process of me getting something to look professional and decent was not what he expected. And so the communication was, I guess, less than desirable in that moment. And so I realized I really had to be careful, like, when I decided that yes, I would live design for folks, because it's not when people hire you for a creative project, it's usually, I mean, sometimes creatives do it because they don't have the time to do it themselves, and sometimes it's hard to design for yourself as a designer. But a lot of times people are hiring you because it's not something that they can do. It's not something that they naturally gravitate towards and understand. And so watching you create it may not always kind of compute in the way that they imagined it would be versus how you actually do it. And that can be hard.
Agreed.
Alexandra says that would be daunting for me too, though I can see the place for it and the benefits. Lindsay says it's the equivalent of having someone look over your shoulder and critique while you work. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's not always fun.
It's never cool.
No. And there's some people that can do that well, which is why I have accepted in the past sometimes when people are like, can you just do it, while I'm watching? And I'm like, yeah, okay. I've got a couple like reoccurring clients where I'm like, for you, yes. But some people, they don't wait long enough for you to get a concept out, and then they're asking you to change things or scrap an idea before you actually have it down on paper, and you're like, but wait.
We didn't even talk about this.
Yeah, Johanna says, big no from me to 9 out of 10 times. Yeah, it can be a hard one. It's interesting now, Johanna says, that a lot of the Adobe suite are becoming collaborative, how that might change how we freelancers work with clients. Yeah, definitely. I would think that would slow down the process to have someone directing you live, says Carol. Yes and no. I think it depends on what you're working on. If you're working on something super specific for someone, yeah, maybe. Which doesn't always matter if you're being paid well for your time. If that's really what they want to do, then sometimes it's like an okay thing to go for. But sometimes I'm really strict about people giving me feedback and making suggestions when I'm working like on my personal channel versus Adobe Live, because I'll say, yeah, you guys can post all the critiques, all the, all of your wants and desires for this piece in the chat, but I'm only going to really choose what I want, and I'm picky about it. And if you have the opportunity to be picky about it, and not take certain critiques to heart, then it can be a lot more rewarding. But when you have to do all the changes because that's the agreement you have with your client and they're watching you live, that can be very difficult. Paul says, my current freelance gig, the client's brother is an illustrator too. We got off to a rough start. That can be odd.
Yeah.
I've also been in a situation where I was doing work for a client that knows an illustrator, and that illustrator is giving them different advice than I am. And so they're like, but my friend says this, and my friend says that. Has that ever happened to you, Shanee? Where you
It
have
has
somebody
happened
doing
to me.
that?
It has happened to me. I'm gonna be very honest. I'm a very vocal person, and that's just my personality. And I've had that happen multiple times, and I've said the same exact thing. You can hire your friend. Best of luck.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Mm-hmm.
move
Yep.
on.
Because
Then they end up coming
mm,
back.
and it's not that, like that's not, first of all, it may teach that client a lesson, like hiring a friend of theirs that's giving them different advice versus hiring you and having that quality they were looking for with you. But it's also a healthy, almost like self-care thing for you as a designer, so that you're not like, unless you really really need that job, that's a very stressful situation to be in, where everything that you tell a client is undermined by some unknown designer out in the world that you have no connection to, that's like, competing with the information you're giving your own client. And it's not a fun way to work. um, Paul says, oh, like advice, pricing, etc. Yeah, that can be hard too if they have somebody giving feedback to them or advice to them about what your prices should be. That's hard. Because your prices need to be what your prices need to be for you. Everyone's life is different. Everyone's needs are different. And so I imagine that must be very frustrating. But like Shanee said, sometimes you have to say, hire your friend then. I wish you all the luck in the world, but if that's what you prefer, maybe that's what you need. Um, and it can feel really weird putting your foot down when it comes to clients. Do you have any maybe advice to offer, like dealing with difficult clients? Because I feel like we've all kind of been there at some point, and if you haven't, you will. Um, what are some situations, maybe if you feel comfortable describing them, like dealing with comfortable or like uncomfortable clients, and maybe how you solve those problems, because those can be hard situations.
Sure. Recently, I had a client. I actually had to fire this client, and sometimes you have to fire clients.
Mm-hmm.
Where our contract said graphic design and illustration work for social media.
Mm-hmm.
However, they took that to mean that I was like managing their social media. So which also meant that they wanted me to respond to their comments X, Y, and Z. However, our contract never said any of that. So I submitted my first round of my social assets X, Y, and Z. They loved it. And then I got this really, really nasty email saying, hey, where's the work? Why aren't you responding to comments X, Y, and Z? And I had to express myself and say, that's not my job. I'm not a social media manager. I'm a graphic designer and illustrator. I'm more than happy to help you find somebody do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just not what I'm here for. And it became just, very, very uncomfortable having to have that conversation with someone who was just very adamant on, well, I need you to do this, which is just not in my wheelhouse. So I had to fire him. And I was happy doing so because, I mean, that's just not what I do. And when you have a contract and you ask for your designer to do things that are not specified in the list of deliverables,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that. You
Yeah.
can't do that. It's just not cool, no matter what.
Wow, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of a situation like that. So they wanted you to do the designs for the social media, but then also manage the account and respond
Yeah.
to their fans and followers on that social media account. That's
Yeah.
wow. That's interesting. I've never heard of something like that. So that's like, if I thought that's what I was getting in a contract, I'd be like, "Are you sure this is what you're gonna do?"
But that wasn't
But
even in the, yeah, that just doesn't make sense. It's not happening.
yeah, yeah. Well, good on you for standing your ground on that and being honest. Because that can be hard too. Like when you do deal with a difficult client that expects certain things of you that's not what was originally agreed upon, or there's some kind of miscommunication on somebody's part, it can be kind of stressful and hard to deal with that, especially if it's not something that you're used to dealing with. I've been in situations as well, where, and it always feels really strange to me to fire a client, um, but it does happen, and I would say to anyone in chat, to kind of prepare yourself, because you may get lucky and every job that you ever have goes perfectly smoothly, but there's a lot of different people on planet Earth that communicate a lot of different ways, and if you make a living communicating with people sometimes over the internet and like never meeting them, chances are you're going to eventually encounter someone who doesn't communicate the same way as you, and you may butt heads. That's just the probability of that, is just a fact that it'll probably happen. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, there are some really healthy steps that you can take. One of them is talking to other people about how those situations came about and what they did to solve those problems, and kind of formulating a plan of action for what you might do in that situation. And then I also would say, make sure to, I guess, preemptively decide how you'll do that by covering yourself with your contract, and everything. And if you don't have contracts yet for your work, I would say look into it, because I don't know if you've made this mistake, Shanee. I know I did when I first started working. Is I would meet a client, I would get so excited about doing the work, and the first initial meeting was so great. I thought, I don't need a contract. This person seems really, really cool. I'm just gonna do the work, and then it all crashes and burns, and I realize I don't have anything backing me up.
Yep.
So I've definitely been in that situation. I'm sure many people in chat have been in that situation. And it's all a matter of, I think, proper communication, proper professional conduct, meaning like being very clear in your contract and everything, kind of covering yourself that way. And I also watched a video on communicating with people in a business sense online, because since I'm self-taught, I'd never like gone to school for design or had an internship of any kind, so I looked at videos online of like how to conduct yourself in a business meeting, and that really helped actually. So you could check that out too.
Awesome to check that out.
My first design gig, they thought a graphic designer was like a comic illustrator. Oh no!
No,
No, it's not.
not at all.
They were like, we want you to make our mascot do all of these things in a series of social media posts, and this is how it should look. And you were probably like, I don't do this. Oh no. That was from Alberto. Let's see.
Oh yeah, this is weird. Object.
Paul says, forgive me if I missed it, but Shanee, do you also do brand content, and voice for clients on social media?
Voice?
Like, I think maybe he means like the identity, kind of like what we were doing yesterday, like kind of building their brand and formulating their voice and their look and feel for social media.
Yeah.
I think yeah, that's kind of what we did yesterday, but not like working their social media accounts.
Yeah, I do that. I do help on that. Yeah, definitely. That's a part of it. I mean, I work with a copywriter that who's really awesome. So I'm not a copywriter, so that's what I like to put someone else on for that. But I do work with it.
So what's that like, working with a copywriter? Because that's not something I've ever done, and so the concept of that is a little bit foreign to me. How does that work, and what's that like?
I like working with a copywriter, to be very honest. It's a very collaborative process.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it how you work in tandem. So like they come up with a really cool copy, which then influences the creative that I make. And so sometimes, with copywriters, even like the coolest words that they use or whatever, like it really influences what I make. So I love it. It's really cool. And they have really great ideas too.
So when you like have like a you have say we'll use like a fictional brand, like you have a brand of like a coffee company that you're designing like a brand identity for, um, you would like kind of clue that copywriter in and they come up with like taglines and stuff and
Yeah,
things
if
like
that's
that.
yeah, if that's the services that's wanted or needed, then that's we'll definitely play around with that. I'm gonna do
Gotcha.
that one. I'm gonna pop that into Illustrator. Sorry, to Photoshop and finish the rest off.
Oh no,
I'm
go
just
for it.
gonna do this one and then pop that in there. So
That's really interesting, and I've heard people talk about uh, getting a copywriter for creating copy for stuff, but I never, like I said, I've never done that, so I'm a lot less familiar with like how it works and what that means as a project. So, um, if you're able to, what does that look like as far as the project itself? Like, if you're working on the branding project for a company and creating their identity, then does the copywriter is the copywriter compensated just for like creating a tagline in general, and then they're not connected to the main project, um, or how does that work?
it honestly depends on the sorry, it honestly depends on the project and what they're doing. Some copywriters I work with, they only just come up, with the name of
Mm-hmm.
the brand. If my client is in that early stages of the phase, some copywriters come up with social media work, so that'll be like an ongoing thing. So we'll do like a retainer package that based off of the packages that we'll come with together to the client. So like basically anything I work with, I clue in my copywriter of, hey, here's the budget. How do you feel about this? And they'll say yes or no, and then we'll move forward together.
Gotcha. That's very interesting. That's really cool. I guess that's kind of interesting because I know uh, a lot of people that are so talented when it comes to like snappy taglines and names and everything. And I'm like, how do they do this? You know, like
Right?
how do they come up with that stuff? I guess that's like a really great opportunity for people who are like witty and clever like that to really get in and kind of use their brain power to come up with some cool stuff.
It is.
Johanna is saying contract and client questionnaires have been an absolute godsend. Yeah, I have like a on track with the client and what they want, um, and that has been like really cool, going forward, from like starting at the very beginning and trying to guess what they want based on the first initial meeting to, here is like samples of my work. um, let's talk about that. Here are some things that I have found online that are, like that I would put into a mood board and say, this is what I'm imagining, this is my thought process. How do you feel about these? And then also asking them, usually for me personally, and this can vary from designer to designer, but I get a lot of people who are interested in a lot of the same things as me because people typically gravitate towards my work that, you know, we have a lot in common, because I'm just doing like character illustrations. So I get like a lot of people who want me to design like their D&D characters or like their OCs from their original stories or, things like that. And so I typically like question them on like their favorite shows or their inspiration for the story that they're writing, so I can try and put myself in that mind space. But I have like a little questionnaire put together, um, uh, preemptively, to send people to really get in their heads and like kind of understand where they're coming from, for a project. And that has been so useful, as you say, Johanna, as opposed to just like jumping into it and going for a first rough sketch and trying to create a project out of thin air and then have it not be exactly what my client was looking for. So
They're definitely having, as you said, like a project brief or like a questionnaire is pretty much integral, I think, for any creative, no matter what field you're in.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Honestly, the more research and understanding you can have before you even put pen to paper, figuratively speaking, the better when it comes to working with clients, in my experience.
Like,
Because I've been in a lot of situations where um, I didn't ask enough questions, and it took me a lot of sketches to kind of get down what they're looking for. When
mhm.
I would have, if I would have spent that extra time, like communicating and going over what they're looking for, I would have saved myself a lot of time, you know? So trying to find a method that works well for you personally to make sure that you and your client are on the same page, that's priceless to me. Biola says the details in this illustration. Whoa. I feel the same way, Biola.
Thank you, thank you.
Uh,
I
I'll,
love that to Photoshop. I love adding even more the textures and stuff.
yeah, I'm excited about that because I want to see like how you add the textures because that's something that I love doing in my own illustrations. So I'm eager for the opportunity to see somebody work, and hopefully maybe we'll find ourselves in one of those situations where we do a similar thing but we have different approaches, and I can learn some new techniques.
Definitely.
Alberto saying, "How did you develop this style? What was your inspiration, movement, or artists that influenced the way that you create these illustrations?"
Um, That's the thing. I don't have one style. I have multiple styles. So like this is like my vector portrait style
Mm-hmm.
that when I first started illustrating, I started out with. And then as I grew as an illustrator, I evolved to, new techniques and styles and stuff. And so like some of the work that I do now has a lot of like highlights and shadows and stuff. But when I first started, like when I was in the middle of it, like about the middle of last year, I kind of stopped all highlights and shadows. I stopped all detail, and I just simply went to just simple figures and block shapes. And I
Mm.
was inspired by what's his name? Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm not an art buff, but the guy with the blue, Matisse. Sorry,
Um. Hmm.
Henry Matisse.
Oh, okay.
The painting, the picture with the blue. Let me Google it really quickly.
Yeah, you would have to Google it because I'm not sure.
This. I was in
Oh yeah,
with the white lines and the cutouts,
yeah,
and
yeah.
if you scroll down to my Instagram, like 2019, like starting from like February or whatever, you'll see like a lot of my work is just like simple flat color and all of these lines, like simple white cutout lines. And the background had no detail whatsoever. And so for a while I was really, really inspired by that. And then
Yeah, I can actually pop over to the Instagram because I can see a lot of these here from like January 9th, 2019, where a lot of the illustrations became a lot of flat shapes with more shapes on top that then added that depth rather than like gradients, it looks like. And that is really, really cool. These are neat. I'm loving this. I love the Michelle Obama birthday queen image you did. That's really cool. Let's see. Matisse, the master of color, says Alberto. Um, Johanna says, "How do you maneuver having a couple of different styles and marketing that to potential clients?"
that's actually a really good question. And that's something that I'm also kind of working with now. So what I've done is I've created a PDF of my artwork, and then I have like 6 samples of my different styles labeled: flat illustration, 2D illustration, 2D illustration, textural, non-textural, scenes, people, X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And I have that whenever a client is interested, and I send that over to them. However, more recently, a lot of my clients, they'll go through my portfolio and they'll select what style that they like,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll send over a new board already of what's
Oh,
so
gotcha.
it helps there.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I have like a similar thing where I have like sketches, and I have like grayscale paintings, and then I have like full color detail paintings, and then I kind of let people pick like what exactly are you looking for, so I know what direction I'm going in ahead of time, and then that's a lot easier to kind of figure out where to go from there. Let's see. Yeah, everybody else is really loving the reference and the blue painting that you pulled up. Johanna says, that's really neat. I believe talking about like having different examples of styles and things and how to market it. And I am absolutely loving the way that you are adding the curl texture to this hair.
Oh, thank you. One thing I love is messing around with the line shape because I don't like the uniform. It's the ends are just too blocky. So I like to play around like with either this shape or this shape for curls. And I think it kind of gives, like that natural textury look, which I'm going for.
I'm loving that.
Very cool. Make it a little bit lighter.
And the variation in color is like very subtle, so it really feels like hair.
Yeah.
And like she's got like these big wavy locks. So that is so cool.
Thank you. Love it, love it. Keep that simple.
Also, just a reminder, we are going to be checking out the challenge entries for today's daily creative challenge in about I almost said 40 minutes, in about 18 minutes. So if you have not yet submitted your challenge entry, please do so if you just jump into the Discord and check out the challenge hashtag challenge channel in the Discord and post it there. We're going to be pulling up those entries and giving a little bit of feedback pretty soon. Also, just a reminder too, if you folks are over on YouTube and you're not sure where the challenge tab is, you will need to come over to behance.net/live because that's where we have all of our information and resources being posted and in the tabs above the chat over there. So if you're wondering where these tabs are I'm talking about, you may be watching in the wrong place. And Alexandra is saying, I love using those line shapes too. Yeah, that's something I also have never done, is really change up those shapes for using lines and stuff. So that's another thing that I'm going to have to check out here and test for myself too.
Alrighty. Now what do we have here? Let's make this one. This is called library.
Basuda says, loving the way you are doing this. I agree, Basuda. It's very like once you get down to kind of detailing like the little bitty details and adding those shading elements and everything, it's really satisfying to start watching it come together.
It is. That's one of my favorite parts of all of this.
So is that like, because yesterday we kind of talked about what your favorite portion of like the branding identity and everything was, and you said it was like when you get to start experimenting with the colors and starting to like mock up posts and things like that. Would this then be one of your favorites for the illustration, or is there a part of the illustration that you love even more?
It's a part that I'm about to switch into right now.
Yay!
I switch this into Photoshop and I add some textures and stuff with the tools that I have. So before I do that, I need to add the textures of this. Stupid. This and this. Right here. We have our libraries. I think for her, let's go with this.
We get all of your textures and everything in the libraries, which is so convenient and so easy to just like drag and drop and use. I love using the CC libraries.
What's going on? No way, let me do that. Do it this way. Why is it not letting me do that?
I'm not sure. You could also try a clipping mask in Photoshop if you're going to transfer it over too, if that
Yeah,
works.
I do a blending mode on it, so you can be able to see the eyelashes underneath. Actually, you know what?
Yeah,
I might be able
yeah.
to do that. I still might be able to do that. You're right. All right, cool. Then let's pop this into Photoshop. So let's CC library.
Chris McDonald says, after watching this and the hamburger illustration the other day, I have to assume each artist has their own hotkeys linked on the Wacom tablet. I think some of us do. Do you use the buttons on the tablet?
I actually despise those buttons, honestly speaking, because I'm always tapping them by accident and things move.
Yeah, I actually never use any of the buttons on my Wacom tablet. However, I do have my own hotkeys routed just in Photoshop in general, because you can go into Photoshop, if you go into like preferences and keyboard shortcuts, you can actually go in and change hotkeys and make some personalized shortcuts for yourself. And I have done that with a few different things just so that I can do certain things quickly, um, and have stuff kind of personalized to me in my own personal workflow. But then I also do know a lot of people who do love um, to use the buttons, and they do have them routed to their own personal things, because while the buttons do have like predetermined functions and stuff, you can actually change them. So I assume if somebody is somebody who loves to design and does use those, I imagine that a few of them are different than the default because they kind of just start adding what they feel they personally need in that space. Creating shortcuts with drop-down menu tasks was such a game changer. Yeah, that's awesome. I think my go-to shortcut that I have made for myself is flipping my canvas horizontal. That's my favorite one. I routed it to Control Shift A because it's right there next to Control Shift S, and I will never forget it. And when I'm painting or doing an illustration or like a portrait, I love just being able to flip my canvas horizontal so I can check it. It's like being able to see my illustration with fresh eyes. And then I don't have to like stop and take a break from it to see if there's anything wrong with it. I can just flip it real quick and then boom, I can see if there's anything that needs to be altered or anything that looks anatomically strange.
Here we go. Make this another color so we can easily select it. All right. Sure.
Nice, that is so cool. And I love like clipping masks are such a main staple for me in Photoshop ever since I started using them. I honestly, it's one of those things where I don't know what the heck I thought I was doing before I started using clipping masks because it is so convenient and so awesome to be able to use.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only that, but just be able to like move everything around so fluidly, and and continue to like stack clipping masks onto the same shape below is just so great. I love using them. With custom Wacom keys, this is a comment from Justin Blue. With custom Wacom keys, you can have more screen space and not use keyboard or mouse. It's a cool thing. It is indeed. I personally, like, I never really go crazy with the buttons though, because I've become so comfortable with my own favorite hotkeys and go-to tools, and I'm familiar enough with it just with muscle memory that I can go into like the third view of Photoshop and just not have any of the windows showing, and it's just like a black background with my canvas floating in the middle, and then I never have to pull the windows up. I can just hide them and just use my hotkeys the rest of the illustration. I only really have to go back into the menus, especially when it's like, I usually do that when it's late at night because then my screen isn't super bright and I don't have all the interface up. I only have to go back into the menus once every little while for adding like Gaussian blurs and iris blurs and things like that towards the end. Any effects like that that don't really have hotkeys. Yeah, for the most part, I just kind of use my memory uh, of what those shortcuts are without having to look at anything. Sonda says pink shades, great choice. Yes, I agree. This particular gradient that you've used looks so beautiful with the lip color for this illustration. I'm loving it. And then we have about 8 minutes before we transition over to the challenge entries. So if you guys are interested in getting a little bit of feedback on your challenges, we're going to look through some of them. If you guys want to jump into the Discord, which Wade has posted a link, and post your work in the challenge, #challenge channel on the left hand side, you will find it. Yeah, we'll see it in a few minutes. So welcome in, Yash Kushwa. It's good to see you.
Alright, cool. So we have these two done.
So excited. They're looking great.
Cool. So we have one. So real quickly, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a little mock-up of this.
Nice. Oh, I'm excited for mock-ups.
All right. Cool. So we're gonna do this. Let's do Tangle 2. Let's keep it. Tangle 3. Let's pop in.
So did you do a hotkey to add the clipping mask?
I'm sorry?
Did you do a hotkey to add the, like, to turn the layer into a clipping mask real quick, or?
Oh, Command Option G. Sorry.
Oh man, I didn't even know there was a command for it. Command Option G,
Yes.
for which I think would be Control Alt G, I think, on the PC for any PC users. That is amazing. I'm going to use that. This is what I was waiting for. Remember I said I can't wait to see how you start doing these steps, because I bet you I'm going to learn something that I didn't know before, and that's it right there, and I'm probably going to use that every day now. I'm so excited. Yeah, Paul says this is looking great. JD says nice work. Yes, I agree, folks. I am loving it. Ooh, and I love how that gradient has like the pink in the upper corner, or the blue in that upper corner, and then
Mhm.
like diagonal from it is like the blue in her shirt. That looks so cool.
I was debating on if there was too much blue at once, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I think it balances. Like it's very balanced.
I agree.
And
So,
then this one with the beautiful like the lip color, and then like the color of like the spaghetti straps and the glasses. It goes so these are excellent choices, I think. I'm so excited.
come on. What time? All right, and then so I'm just gonna add some of the cool branding that we got yesterday. Let's add some of our Sunny's logo.
Nice.
Let's add something right here. Maybe we'll see. I just like to just pop things around and just see how it fits.
Yeah, no, that's good. We kind of discussed that yesterday, right? Like getting into the mode of like being comfortable with that initial experimentation, and allowing those ideas to kind of flow until you become comfortable with like kind of seeing how things don't work, and then getting a better idea of what things will work. So this is really cool to see.
Sunnies. I really have sunnies. Let's color overlay. Let's make this logo different color. Let's make it the fun blue. I like.
Ooh, yeah.
I love the way that blue just speaks.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's definitely not on the center of that image. What happens? All right, and then last that I love to do is add on top of here. Let's do this. Favorite thing is to add a noise layer. Like I'm obsessed with noise layers. Filter.
Oh, and you just kind of make your own noise texture.
Yes, I do. I like to
Nice.
pull it. Oh, let's try this vivid light and put the fill down.
Nice.
Awesome.
That looks so cool. That was quick too. That was really quick.
I actually really love working like under pressure. I know it's kind of like probably not healthy, but I really enjoy it because I find that like I kind of just like get some of my best work done because I'm more confident in my decisions.
Mm-hmm. No, I know what you mean. Like I kind of work better when I get closer to the wire, because I'm just like, it has to get done, and how am I going? Like my mind instantly goes into what's the quickest, most efficient way I can finish this project with the highest possible quality, and then I'm just like boom, 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 and I just kind of like run through it and go for it, and it's I don't know why I don't do that when I know I have like a month to finish something versus having a week to finish something. I don't know why I don't do that, but that's how I am. But I don't think we're alone in that.
We're not alone in that. How much time do we have?
We are coming up on like a minute left until we jump into the challenge entries. But you can take a few minutes to start placing these into the template if you like.
Awesome. So do that real quick. Let's do a mixture of imagery. Right, that image that I love so much.
Kara wants to know if you have checked out Adobe Dimension for creating mockups. They look very realistic.
I have not. That's something that I probably should check into, but I have not checked into Adobe Dimension.
Yeah, it's pretty fun because you can literally like create your own mock-ups that suit your projects, and that is it's really cool to see people work. If you're interested, I know that we have done some really great streams on Adobe Live for people using Dimensions. You could probably find them in our previous Dimension streams underneath the video player. So if anyone like Shanee, you or anyone in chat wants to check it out, all you got to do is scroll down below the video player. We actually have all of our previous streams kind of organized by category. And then you can also go to the Creative Cloud YouTube and look for the streams on Adobe Dimension, and it's a pretty cool time.
I love that. That's a really cool thing to know.
You're
I'm gonna check
welcome.
that out. Let's see, like what did I do? Hold on. Edit. Boom. This.
'Loving this so much. Paul Alvarez is putting them clap emojis in the chat. I agree. Chris says, so cool to see the art process here. Love the summery vibe. I also agree. It's been like bright and beautiful and inspiring like this whole time. We've gotten to see like this brand identity come together. It's been a good time.
Now this has been really fun, like super fun. I'm so happy that I've been doing this and I'm on this.
Well, we are super happy to have you, definitely. I know that I learned so much like watching you put things together. Like, I feel like every few minutes I'm like thinking to myself, if I don't say it out loud, I'm like, oh my gosh, mind blown, I'm gonna do that. And so I know it's been like that for chat as well. So, and I love that you put this together as well because this really does, like, I can imagine being a brand that is like looking to learn and find a way to start branding themselves and start
Mhm.
presenting themselves on social media. This would be like a really fabulous thing to see, especially for people who, they're not used to doing social media stuff. They don't know how to create that branding and to use the assets, and need to see it. So this really gives a good idea of like what your Instagram could potentially look like if you were using these assets that I create for you. It's a really good
Yeah.
idea.
And I think it really kind of like gives them a kind of like a starting point of where to go from.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
um, let's replace this lady with this lady. Whoops, that's not what I want to do.
Alexandra also is saying the Instagram mockup is really nice. Yeah, I'm loving it.
There we go.
And then after we finish up this mock-up, folks in chat, we're going to jump into the challenge entry reviews. And then we'll probably have a little more time afterward just to kind of jump in and do a quick recap of Shanee's work. So we can go over for anyone who kind of jumps into chat, or maybe you jumped into chat a while back, but you weren't here for the beginning. We can kind of look over everything that we did and created for the last couple days, and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I have two more assets in, and then we are golden.
Awesome.
So let's pop this. there. Let's pop this one in there. Right, and then last one.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, you get those images in there so quickly. That hotkey is magic.
It is. It really is super helpful. And it helped me for a lot of stuff when I was learning as well.
I'm loving it.
All right, cool. So we are done.
Awesome. And there you have it. That is so cool and so helpful and just easy to understand for people who are kind of new to using the assets. They can really clearly see kind of what the possibility is and maybe how to go from there after they've used your assets and maybe want a change, you know. It's kind of an interesting thing, like being able to show clients this. It also educates them for the future of their brand when you're not there anymore, right? So this is really cool. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to switch over to our full cam real quick before we jump into the portfolio, or not portfolio reviews, the challenge entries. So earlier, Shanee, I actually sent you a link, and I have since emailed you a new one because I actually sent you the Illustrator Discord, but we should be in the Photoshop Discord. So I've got it switched over so you can check out all the top secret links that I've sent you without anyone seeing. Sorry for that mix-up. Because since we were using Illustrator so much, I sent you the Illustrator one, and then I looked at the tab today, and was like, oh, Photoshop, here we go. But since you signed up, it should let you in there right away, so you don't have to do any extra stuff. Wade is posting the Discord link as well as the challenge landing page for those of you who have never seen the challenge before and would like to check it out. And then I'm going to pop over here to the current challenge page, as well as show off the landing page that we're looking at today, because I kind of want to go over and show people real quick what we're going to do, read today's challenge, and everything before we get into it. So if you pop over to behance.net/challenge/Photoshop, that is the landing page which Wade just posted in there. And so that is essentially where every day that we have a challenge going on, you can jump in and see what the previous challenges were, and you can also make sure that you're on the proper challenge because it will have the dates and everything set up for you to make sure that you're in the right time frame. Each day you receive a challenge. You can join the community chat and join the Discord so that you can communicate with others. You can watch the daily live show to get started and ask questions. And then you can share your work towards the end to get feedback, which is what we're doing today. And the first challenge for Photoshop is polishing portraits. So it says improve a portrait using blending modes and retouching techniques, which I think is super fitting because we did a lot of portrait style work today. So I'm going to page this down and I'm going to come down to the beginning here. And I see this first one from Surendra. And it looks like, let me pull this open. Yeah, this man here with the denim jacket. I would love to see the original image, but for me, this looks like a pretty crisp, clean image you could use for like a fashion site or something. What do you think? I think it should be like there is actually a before and after. It looks like they posted. Or this may be an image that a lot of people are using, so I can kind of see the before there on that one, and then I look back at Surendra's, and it's got like a higher contrast and like a little more saturation. What do you think about it, Shanee?
I like it. One thing that's jumping out to me is how blue the photo is.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I would adjust the color balance just a little bit. I'm looking at the original photo and I see that it is a very tonally blue,
Mm-hmm.
tonally white photo. But I would add just a little bit of warmth because it's just a little cold to me. Other than that, I love the crispness of it. Before it felt a little too faded. Now I love how crisp it is, and you can really like see the details, especially on the jacket, like the burning. I love
Mm-hmm.
it. The
Yeah, I
details are.
agree.
Mhm.
I like what you said about the crispness of it too, and that's why I always encourage people. I say please post the before, because we may never have known if somebody above hadn't used the same photo. We wouldn't really have known the work you did on the project coming from um, not having seen the original file that you were supplied with. So it's always a good idea to include that, just so we know the work that you actually did. So yeah, I agree with you, Shanae. I think that it's crispy, as I like to say. It's very crispy. um, it looks like Diaz did a daily creative challenge cover for their Behance project, which is awesome. I'm liking it. I kind of like that there's like two tones there. I don't know if you noticed that, Shanae. It's like lighter on top and darker on the bottom, which is pretty cool. Um, it seems to me like you did like a stroke on the inside, which is, I don't think it's bad. Or I don't think that it's like not good design, I should say, but I wonder if using that inner stroke on the P and S above Daily Creative Challenge was the right choice, considering the type that you used. Because they're very vastly different types, so adding that stroke on it is slightly awkward to me, but that could just be personal preference, because it is fairly clean. What do you think, Shanae?
Yeah, for me, I'm looking at the inside of the P and like how it's exactly with the stroke it's touching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, yeah, the bowl, that for me, I definitely agree with. And then also the spacing. I like the color palette, first of all. I love the color palette. But the spacing is really jumping out to me. With the P and the S being lowercase, it just feels like the S, it's just kind of like by itself on its side, you know? It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel snug with the PS to me.
Yeah, I agree. I would suggest maybe trying to put that stroke on the outside of the P and S, and
Mm-hmm.
then maybe edit the spacing a little bit and bring that S closer in to the P, so they're a little more snug. Might do the trick. Do some experimenting with that. But as Shanae said, I love this color palette. I like the lockup. I like how the P and S kind of break that barrier between the light and dark blues too. I think that's a really cool thing. And then I also like that you didn't choose one color or the other from the background to do the text. You chose like a related darker color, but not quite a black, to put the text in, which I think looks really good. So well done. And that was from Diaz. So thank you for sharing, Diaz. And then we have Becky, who has done the before and after. Um, I think that this seems similar to what you were asking for in the previous one. I see a lot more warmer tones in this image. What do you think about it?
I like it. I see the warmer tones. However, for me, it's still a little bit too blue and purple.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm looking like at the purple in his sweater, and compared to the bottom, it was like really like darker purple. This is like a lighter purple. I
Yeah.
think I think it's the levels. You can tell the levels have been opened up a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and you can tell it's more purpley red. But I think some adding a little bit of yellow would really help it. But other than that, I love the crispness of it. Um, I'm trying to say it's a little bit small, but I know I love it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I love it too. I think you're right, where like everything seems like more purpley, but still very crisp, very clean, and I can still see this used in like a some kind of ad or something like that. Um, and let's see. So Shara R says she did this like side by side version of hers because someone else had done it, and so I think that this is really cool because we have like the full version that she did so that you can see the final before. But this side by side really does give you an idea of what it looked like before, with the desaturated like focal subject matter, versus the kind of like blue and red tint that it now has. And personally, when I look at the before, it actually looks like the background was much, much lighter and closer in value to the subject matter, the person here in this photo. And then now in the final version, the background has been darkened in a really nice way, and the character and focal point pops out, which I really appreciate. I think that that was a good choice. What do you think?
I agree. There, you definitely created some separation between foreground and background, and yeah, you definitely have that with the sort of slight bokeh, slight, pixelated in the background. But I really love, again, the color separation, how you can really tell the shirt in front, the blue, it doesn't really pop in the back. I like it.
Yeah, I don't think that I would change anything, with this one. I think you made some really great changes, and I love it. Well done, Shara. And then let's see. The next one is Manal Samir, publishing portraits. And so, ooh, this is a cool one. This is this woman in the hat here. The before and the after. I love that you have given us, that before and after, so we can really see it. What do you think about this one? I'm really enjoying this.
I love it too. It's very whimsical, which I appreciate, and I definitely see this, like as a fashion ad. I love the colors. I actually want to go to that field myself. It
Yeah.
looks very exciting. But and I love the act how you added some saturation to the sky. Because the before photo, the sky just seems a little bit flat, but
Mm-hmm.
you added that nice saturation to it, which really kind of separates the grass and the landscape from the sky. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the texture that it brought out in the clouds. That you really, like you said, it's kind of flat in the original, and you couldn't even really see that differentiation between blue sky and white cloud very much. But now with the new details that you've added, it's a little more obvious, and it gives it that much more life. So, yeah, I love it. This definitely strikes me as like an Instagram lifestyle kind of portrait to me. Like if I was going to, look at like a very popular influencer, this feels like something she may have like on her profile promoting her brand, and it feels really cool. So very well done. Let's skip up to, Green. Uh, Says I'm just having fun here, and if we click on his, he just kind of like took the image and edited it a little bit, and also did a lot of, text and things as well. Um, I do like the colors that he's, changed in this one, because while some of the other images were more purpley, like you mentioned, Shanae, this one seems like more of a maroon and still has those, warm colors in the trees in the background. So I feel like this is a pretty good representation of like everything still is blue, but the stones seem less blue and more like gray. They have more of that warm, like, more yellow lighting on the stone in the tunnel in the back, you know? Um, I think my only advice is, um, I would change the lockups and maybe the font that you're using for the text, because with like when it says and black and white adjustment layer, I definitely get confused because you seem to have like hyphenated adjustment. And I might have chosen to do something where it says like fun with vibrance, black and white adjustment layer in Photoshop. I may have chosen to make those like caps and lock it up so they're the exact same width as each other, even if you have to make them different sizes, and put them diagonal on this interesting shape you have going across, um, the subject matter there. That might have been cool, instead of like placing them around in the empty space, because it kind of makes it look a little too busy for me personally. What do you think, Shanae?
I agree as well. But that, yeah, that diagonal shape, I like it. I'm trying to figure out, is that the edit or is that the original? That's the only thing I'm a little confused about.
Oh, it could be like a clip of to show the difference between. See, I didn't even like extrapolate that because it looked more like a design
Mm-hmm.
element because all the text had been added. But now that you say that, yeah, that may be what that is.
Like, those sliders, when you look at the photo, you slide back and forth. Like, I can see that shape being a slider. Like,
Yeah.
after. So that's what I was a little unclear of. Other than that, I agree. I think the type actually kind of takes away from the photo. So I would have blocked everything up a little bit smaller towards
Hmm.
maybe the bottom, or actually had fun with the type and put it like around the edges or something,
Yeah,
just so
yeah.
that the photo itself kind of speaks. Or even like crop the photo like in a shape and then have the text around that, just because I think the text on it just kind of detracts from the image. It's just, where's my focal point going?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, I think that's great feedback. So yeah, thank you, Green, for posting. I love that you kind of. I mean, he kind of did like post too. Like, I'm just having fun here. I think that kind of alludes to he's just like kind of messing around and trying new things and stuff. But hopefully, maybe some of this feedback can inspire you to experiment a little further and see where it takes you. Um, and then we I think that's actually probably the last one we should do, or maybe actually let's look at one more because we've got one um, from Ant here that we can check out, and then we should take off and kind of do our recap and everything. So this last one from Ant says my entry for day one. It looks like he actually made the background black and white, which is different than the other ones we've seen so far, which is interesting because it makes the character look blue, like we talked about, but it also doesn't have a lot of that extra blue that we were worried about in previous ones. What do you think about that?
I agree. I mean, now that I'm looking at it closer, I can see that the foreground was separated from the background with color and saturation.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's looking, I think that's actually a really cool concept, but just for this particular image, it's a little spooky looking for
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
Um, I lose context that there's a tree and everything behind there. It just looks like a little bit of a graveyardy sort of gate. And as for me, I prefer a bit more saturation. But as for the actual like color separation and the cleanliness of the selection that I'm looking at,
mm-hmm.
that's really clean.
Yeah, yeah.
That selection is really clean of the foreground. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So that's awesome, Anne. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm gonna, if you want to pull up your work again, we can spend a couple minutes kind of doing a little recap of what you worked on before we take off because we've got just a few minutes left here. So yeah, why don't we go over some of the cool mock-ups you made and talk a little bit about what you did?
For sure. So, we did Sunnies, and so today I just finished up all the illustration for the brand, and just kind of like putting everything together. What I didn't get to do was make the sunglasses case and illustrate some of the actual individual sunglasses that I wanted to do, but I'm gonna do that later. And this is just looking at everything else. So here's again the mood board that we started off with. Here's the colors that we started off with. Um, and here is where we ended up. We have our logo, which is
Our little sun.
here, real quick. We have our logo, which is a little sun for sunnies.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our secondary logo, which is the little sun. We have our beautiful, beautiful gradients that we have over here. There's like four of them, all different colors. We have a really, really cool color palette that I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
We have so much fun. We picked the typeface Moret or Moray, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but I enjoy this typeface. I think it has really quirky glyphs and really quirky bowls situations, so I appreciate it. And then we mocked everything up. And then we have our Instagram and we have a little fake ad, just purely
Nice.
I would love to do one with just, like an actual photograph as well, just to kind of like mix both of the brands. And yeah, this is where we're at. And I'm super excited. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for that recap. Unfortunately, folks, we do have to take off. We're coming to the end of our stream here. But I believe you said, Shanee, that the best place for everyone to follow you and see everything that you post going forward is going to be Instagram. So I know we'll have the link for the Instagram in chat in just a moment. Please give Shanee a follow on Instagram. You'll probably see, if you said you're going to do some of those glasses cases later, you can see that, and just any of her other projects coming up. Shanee, it's been an absolute blast and a pleasure hanging out with you yet again. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much again. This has been so much fun.
I've had a really good time. Thank you, chat. And we will see you another time. Adios, folks.
Bye.